Welcome to the Real Turf Techs podcast for the technician that wants to get real. Follow along as we talk to industry professionals and address hot topics that we all face. Along the way, we'll learn tips and tricks. I'm your host, Trent Manning. Let's have some fun. Welcome to the Real Turf Techs podcast, episode 116. Today we're talking to Brian Harper, equipment manager at Pendleton Golf Club in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Pendleton Golf Club is an 18-hole public facility. Brian is typically the only tech in the shop. Sometimes he gets help from the crew. He's all John Deere, except for one poor, lonely Procore 648. Let's talk to Brian. Welcome, Brian, to the Real Turf Techs podcast. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, Trent. This is going to be a blast.
Yep. No, I'm looking forward to it, and we'll just hop right in there. Tell us how you got into the turf industry.
It's a little unorthodox. I got in late. I was 28 years old when I got into the turf industry. I had done a lot of things already at that point in my life. Quit high school when I was young and to join a rock band, thought I was going to be a musician for the rest of my life, and that didn't work out. And then that's a hard living. And then I was a truck driver for a little while, delivering furniture, driving 26-foot straight trucks and popping into your living room and giving you a new couch every now and then. And then I became a bartender, and I moved to Florida, and I hung out down, the mecca for bartending. And I was in the Keys for a while. I was in Miami for a while, Orlando. I was all over. And then I moved back home. My mom got sick, and I was tired of being in a bar. I was tired of not getting home until 4 a.m. All those things. And in order for me to be with my mom, I had to change jobs. And my brother and I were brainstorming about what we would do if we weren't bartending. And my brother said, I've always wanted to cut a golf course. And I said, yeah, that's a great idea. That'll get me up early and get me home, And I applied for a job that was just looking for a guy for a string trimmer. And I got it. And I never looked back, really. Started a place called the Gauntlet Golf Club in Stafford, Virginia. A guy named Pat Spillane hired me, and I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed everybody I worked with. It was just different, and I've been doing it ever since. I was in the turf side for a long time. I stayed on the turf side, worked my way up to assistant superintendent after irrigation tech and crew chief for whatever, foreman. But I realized that the mechanic went home every Friday and didn't come back until Monday, unless it was a holiday, and then he didn't come back till Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I'm mechanically inclined, and I like to, and I come from that operator space, so I got that aspect to it. And then I applied for a job at a golf course as the mechanic, and the rest is history. That was a long time ago now.
Okay.
I'm 28 years in this summer.
Awesome. Well, congratulations.
1996. Yeah.
Yeah. So good. So, but I got to know, how did you and your brother decide, I want to cut a golf course?
Well, we both like playing golf.
Okay.
When I was in the Keys, we had a country club, Sombrero Country Club, which was right in my little island of Marathon in my little town. Otherwise, you had to go to Key West and play golf, or you had to go to the mainland, which we did, both of those things. But since we weren't members, one of the waitresses that worked with me, her dad was the head pro. And he said, I need guys to hand rake greenside bunkers on Mondays if y'all want to play golf. And so that's what me and the chef would do. We'd go hand rake greenside bunkers and play golf for free.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've liked golf always, and I've liked the game too. I'm not very good at it. At one point I might've had an 18 handicap, but I'm still pretty bad at it. I don't play often enough to be good at it.
Well, that's all good. If you enjoy it, you enjoy it, and that's all that mattered.
It's a good waste of time for 4 hours. Yeah.
It's like fishing. Yeah. You don't have to be good at it. It's something you enjoy.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of people probably enjoy driving a car, and they're really not good at it.
Oh, dude.
Right. So
that's right.
Yeah. So was you and your brother bartending together?
Yeah. I was a bar manager down in Florida, and he was a bar manager here in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And,
okay.
and he was a confirmed bachelor. He's never been married, jumped ship, and went into
Mm-hmm.
golf. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, what's your least favorite part of working at the golf course?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that irritates us, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the sand is no fun for the equipment manager. That's a necessary evil. We all know. My
Mm-hmm.
my greens love it. Every other week, they love it like top dressing.
Mm-hmm.
Really
Can
messing
your
them up.
superintendent really do a lot top dressing?
Yes. So
Okay.
yeah, he really does. And we also have, I don't know, Dakota Turf Tender on a 2020 platform,
Mm-hmm.
and it has a little computer now that saves all your settings. And so he can go in and dial up those settings, and the guy that does it is really, really good at it. He's just
Okay.
he's really good at it. Yeah. Now, if the
Awesome.
super does it, it's a hair heavy, but right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the way it goes for
And
sure.
then you know what I really hate is the gouging of the big three on the parts.
Yeah.
An example, like, the foamer cup on the end of a HD 200 or 300, it's a piece of hard plastic and a screen. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's $186. I just had to buy one the other day. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, I know this does not cost anywhere near this to produce.
Well,
And, and that kind of stuff just gets me sometimes.
no, I understand completely, and the big three isn't gonna like me, but I'm not here to, you know, to get pats on the back.
Right.
You should check out. I'm trying. I don't know. I just went blank on their name. Oh, it's Richmond Industries. I
Uh,
think they're in Idaho, maybe somewhere, out that way. Maybe they're in Iowa. I don't remember. But just Google them, and you can get that same collector head for the foam marker. Or they also sell little smaller ones, and they are much, much, much more cheaper.
okay. Thank you.
Oh, I shouldn't say cheaper. I mean, it's like the same thing,
Less
and
expensive.
yeah, less expensive, much less expensive.
Right.
And usually, like all my sprayer parts, I usually go through Doltmeyer, which I think they are Iowa. Um,
Okay.
and they sell, I mean, anything from pumps and all that stuff. And then I just bought a high pro pump from Sprayer Depot,
Right.
because if you
I have
go to,
outsourced pumps. Yeah,
yeah, if you go even like nozzles and nozzle bodies and all those things, if you go OEM, I mean, it's rough.
it is. Yeah.
And, I mean, it is a bummer. And I understand, the company's in business to make money, but it does seem excessive at times.
Right. It's
Yeah.
it seems like they're holding the gun to your head sometimes, and
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
times they got the welcome wagon. Yeah.
Right. And then, I mean, the other strange thing is if there's competitive parts out there, just like tapered roller bearings, say,
Right.
a lot of times John Deere and Toro, they'll be pretty competitive on those parts, within a few cents. Sometimes they're even cheaper,
Cheaper. Yeah.
you know? So you really gotta, to manage your budget, you really have to do your due diligence and check around and see what these prices are. Same,
Absolutely.
same way with oil filters and stuff like that. A Wix oil filter may be less expensive, but it may not be.
Right.
And then, the whole direct fit thing and all that stuff you run into, same micron rating, same beta rating, all those things you can get in trouble too.
Right.
But I'm glad you brought that up. And I mean, I think we all feel that pain.
Right. And like those two companies you mentioned, I'd never heard of. I'm 28 years in. I'm like, what is he talking? What are these
Well, yeah,
companies?
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just, I mean, really networking, word of mouth. A friend of mine told me about Daltmeyer, and the Richway Industries pulled apart a John Deere foamer, and it had a Richway Industries sticker inside of it. And I said,
Okay.
"Ooh, I'm
I'm
gonna
writing them
check
down
these
now.
people out." Yeah, yeah, write them down, man. If not, you got my number.
Hey,
Text me anytime, and I'll be happy to help you out and turn you on
right.
to those companies.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. What's your favorite tool?
My 10 millimeter gear wrench. It usually goes in my pocket in the morning, and and I'll use that thing all day long. It seems like, oh, that's 10 millimeter, that's 10 millimeter. And then on top of that, it's the WhatsApp group. I mean, the WhatsApp group is so beneficial and useful, and not just fixing things, and not just maybe getting a different point of view on how to fix something, but just the release, the being able to joke around with each other, or let's all talk about the trailer tongues on the Southco roller trailers.
Mhm.
That kind of stuff makes me laugh. Every time I pick it up, I'm like, I get a good chuckle out of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
the WhatsApp group is really cool.
That's awesome that you say that. And I mean, I never dreamed when we started all this and doing a podcast and then starting the community. I mean, I never dreamed it would turn into what it is, but I'm so happy about where it is. And I
It's
mean,
very cool.
it's a good group of people in there. And yeah, we cut up and joke around. And, I mean, were you able to come to, I'm sorry that I don't remember, but were you at the EM roundtable? And
Yes,
okay.
I was.
I hosted that and I enjoyed that so much. And I don't know if anybody else enjoyed it, but I had a blast.
It's a
And
great format. Yeah,
and I mean, it's just, a good group of people that, I like to call friends, you know, it's
it's a
awesome.
very cool group of folks.
And, out of everybody, I don't know how many we had in there. We had 50 people and there was probably, 15 of them that's in the WhatsApp group.
Right,
And that's how I know them is through the WhatsApp group.
right,
And
right.
then from being in Phoenix, I don't know how many people we added. There was, I mean, 4 or 5, 7, 8 people got added in
Right, okay.
Phoenix.
Alright.
And just the other day, John Watson, he was the Toro University school, whatever, and he added 2 more guys. I mean, it just keeps
It
growing.
keeps growing.
And
Yeah, I saw today you were like, we're trying to keep it to text now, there's so many people, but yeah.
well, yeah, and I've had quite a few, maybe not quite a few, but I've had a couple superintendents, reach out, and I've
Right,
had some techs ask me, well, what about a superintendent joining? And I don't know. I mean, I don't have anything against superintendents, obviously. I've been working for them for however long I've been in this industry. And they're great guys and all that stuff, but I don't want a superintendent to be in the group and a technician not be able to be himself. You know what
makes
I
sense.
mean?
Yes.
Or, and not that anybody looks bad and everything stays on the up and up in there. And I appreciate everybody in there and everybody being positive and just trying to help people out and not, giving anybody a hard time because they're new to the industry because we all started somewhere. I think
Oh,
I've
yeah.
harped on that enough. But yeah, I just don't want to open that can of worms. And if it's a superintendent, because I know there's at least a couple in there that are superintendent slash mechanic slash irrigation tech.
Right,
If they're doing all that stuff, I'm fine with them being in
right.
there.
If they're a
But
mom and pop and they're doing everything, yeah, I
yeah,
get it.
yeah,
Yeah,
because I mean, they're just as much a mechanic as they are a superintendent. It just depends
right.
on the day. They're changing hats all the time.
Yeah.
Whatever, wherever
We
I got to
know,
put out
yeah.
this fire. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. But yeah, so and if anybody listening, I've had a lot of people DM or text me or, send me an email like, "Oh, I heard about this WhatsApp group. Can I get in?" Just send me an email or text me or send me a DM, whatever,
Right.
and we'll get you pointed in the right direction. And while I got you here, I want to ask, what do you think about the different groups in there now?
I love it. I love the you have the BS group, and then you have the now what's gonna be San Diego 2025 show group. I like bouncing back and forth in there. I don't get as much time to look at it as I would like, somehow my WhatsApp got frozen while I was on vacation. I don't know. But when I
Okay.
came back, there was a million messages, and I was just, "Well, I can't go through
Oh
all of
wow.
them." Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But
That's
I do
funny.
love going through all of them, yeah. And I got lots of
What
WhatsApp groups with other stuff too. Like
okay.
My Railroads group has, a WhatsApp group
Okay.
that
Awesome.
yeah, and all of us try to stay in touch. We've done a Zoom happy hour with each other before,
Mhm.
yeah. It's
That's
kinda fun
cool.
to work that
Yeah,
out.
yeah. Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. Yeah, and, for the people listening, start a WhatsApp group in your area.
Yeah.
You know, I know JR had one in New York, Ben Beard's got one in Michigan, Brian started one in Nebraska.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's one in Florida. You know, I mean, they're popping up all over. And I
Right.
know the UK guys, Matthew Axton, he's got some stuff going on for, with them. And I
My
think there
guy,
is
Chris Fogg.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think, it's good to have your local group too.
Yes.
I think there's a need for both.
Right.
So yeah, and just that network of, especially in your local region where maybe you run out of bed knives, or
You're
this
right.
machine goes down during aerification and you need this, and the guy down the road's got that he can let you
Absolutely.
borrow or whatever. I mean, that's happens all the time. And like John Patterson, he calls me one day and he says, "You got a front tire for a 2020 Pro Gator. I ordered 10 of them and they're not going to be in for 3 days,
Right.
and I need one right now." I'm like,
Right.
"Yeah, man, come on." I mean, it's no big deal.
Absolutely.
Cause yeah, we love helping out our neighbors. Well, I think I rambled enough on that. What do you do to relax or find your balance?
So there's a lot to that for me. I'm all over the place. I played music most of my life, but playing drums isn't very relaxing. Kind of, kind of aerobic and blood pumping. Uh,
Mhm.
so I fish. I fish a lot. I like to fish. Specifically, I love to fly fish. I
Okay.
pick up spinning gear too. I got one hanging on my wall in my office, and it's moments ready for any bass pond on the golf course. But that's one of the best things about working in golf for me is all the different bass ponds that I've fished and
Mhm.
how many fish I have landed and kissed and loved on during lunch hour. Right. It's like I got, oh
Oh,
man, it's
yeah, yeah.
lunchtime. I'm gonna go catch some fish, and I'll catch 4 or 5 in 30 minutes. And I'm just like, oh,
Mhm.
what a productive lunch hour. But yeah, I like fishing for all of it, man. I like smallies, big mouth, largemouth stripers and shad in the spring here in the rivers. I love ocean fishing. I got my bug when I was in the Keys fly fishing. So yeah, any saltwater, I love all of it, man, for sure.
That's awesome, and I can definitely relate. I don't know how many fish I've caught on the golf course. It's been a bunch over the
Yeah, it's
years.
been a bunch.
Had
You
you
have to
said
have,
that.
yeah. And then one more thing that I do that I've been doing for the past year is taking stand up comedy classes. I've taken stand up 101 and stand up 201. And for the past year, I've been doing open mics and I've done a few showcases and I've done one book gig and I wanted to be creative. I was bored with just going to work, doing my thing, coming home,
Mhm.
and I wanted to be creative somehow. And I always played music, but you got to get a group of people together and schedules and it's not quiet. It's loud. You got to have a spot. It's expensive. I wish I could paint, but I can't. And that's that's also a very expensive hobby, and I landed on stand-up comedy because all it needs is a laptop or pen and a paper and use your brain, and so I've had a lot of friends tell me over the time, "Hey, man, you ought to be a comedian. You're funny."
Uh-huh.
And so one night last year, I just said, "Oh, you know what? I'm gonna give that a whirl, Merle," and here I am. I love it. I'm a little more than a year in, and it's been a blast. I tried to look for open mics at Myrtle and at Phoenix, and they didn't have any, but
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. That's awesome, man. That's so cool.
yeah.
And I mean, it's so fun. I've interviewed, well over 100 people, and, everybody has their thing,
Yeah,
and it's just awesome how we all do the same thing, but, we're all so different also,
right. That's the
what
beauty
makes
of
us
it,
tick
right?
and all that stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's really, really cool.
Yeah.
What has been your biggest challenge to date?
Technology. And just being blunt, I'm not necessarily afraid of it. I just don't necessarily get it immediately. It takes a while. It has to be real repetitive for me in order for me to get technology. Uh,
Mhm.
I can fix things. I can figure things out. I understand why this works or why that works. And then sometimes when it comes to technology, I'm like, how come this doesn't work? I cannot fix it. Just like last night when I was trying to get on with you. But Eventually, I figured out, oh, it's just my terrible Wi-Fi.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, coming down the pike with this industry and this business and this job, if you don't stay up with the times, you're going to be left behind. And I'm not ready to retire yet, nor can I. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, there's unfortunate that there's a lot of good mechanics that, yeah, aren't here with us anymore, mainly because of that, because they
right,
didn't keep up with the times.
right,
And I mean, I get it, but you gotta embrace it. It's coming whether you want to do it or not.
exactly. So that's probably my biggest challenge today.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I can relate, and especially electricity, electronics, and all that stuff. It's so intimidating because you can't see it.
Right.
And I mean, hydraulic fluid. Hopefully you're not seeing it, but you can at least think about the way it flows through. The circuit and what's doing what.
Right. You
Um,
understand how that works. Yeah.
Yeah, you can it's easier to comprehend. And I
Right.
mean, the few classes that I've had on, electrical and that kind of stuff, they try to relate it back to hydraulics and how that works because
Right.
it's easier to understand that. Well, what's the strangest thing you've seen around the golf course?
I'm gonna keep it PG-13 as much as I can, but there was this guy, or who knows, there was this person who would have these, let, let's say, tryst on our fourth fairway at this old golf course I worked at. And you would see the evidence the next morning by there would either be a sheet or towels laid down and surrounded by little tea lights, little candles. His romance game was on point, right?
Okay.
And I can only imagine that they would get, showered with irrigation at some point during the night, which is why the towel and the tea lights are still there and they didn't collect them. Who knows? Maybe it was part of the plan anyway. But
Right,
yeah,
right.
we would find that guy was prolific. I mean, I found 4 or 5 different nights where he was active. Other than that, it's a lot of we had a hole in one camera on one of our, so if you pay a couple of bucks at the clubhouse and you get a hole in one, this camera sees it and you paid out the jackpot. Well, what
Mhm.
it did was catch all these kids riding dirt bikes, jumping our sixth green,
Yeah, yeah.
tearing it all up, and they posted it on YouTube and found out who the little crazy guys were. It was pretty funny
Mhm.
that worked out.
That's funny. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've heard about people putting trail cams up and all kind of stuff,
Yeah.
trying to find, people vandalizing or the coyotes chewing through the ropes.
Yes. We have a lot of coyotes up here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we definitely have them down here, and our superintendent had convinced himself and everybody else on the crew that it was a member cutting the rope
Right.
until he got a picture on the trail cam.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. He's like,
Uh,
Look, it's just a clean cut. If it was
Right.
anything chewing on it, it would be frayed." And I mean, he'd convinced everybody. Good stuff.
That's funny.
Do you have a mentor in the industry?
So I do. I've worked with one guy a very long time. His name is Brian Roudabush. He's a Class A superintendent. He was assistant superintendent when I got my first job at the Gauntlet. And he and I have worked together the whole time. We've worked at 3 different golf courses together, and we even owned a lawn and landscape business together.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, so he's a real bright guy, really knows how to grow grass in the transitional zone here in the Mid-Atlantic.
Mhm.
Um, and he's working with us now. He's not the super, he's the assistant because his daughter is in her final year of high school playing softball, and he likes to be able to leave at
Ah,
2:30
okay. Yeah.
or whatever.
Mhm.
So he's looking for another superintendent's job, but he's working with me again right now, and I'm working with him, and he's a big part of my golf life. We've
Mhm.
we've been we've been around the block together. He started his career as an assistant, and I started my career as a bunker puke, and we've been together for a very long time. There's a few other guys that mean a lot to me too. Jeff McMacken with Rebels Tractor. Jeff was a super that I worked for at my very first mechanics job,
Okay.
tech job. Jeff and Jay Wade, he's a certified golf course superintendent here at Magnolia Greens. He was the assistant at that course. A guy named John Dunker helped me out a lot. And
Mhm.
George James was the first tech I ever worked with And that poor soul, he hated to work. He hated work. He thought work was the devil itself. And
Mhm.
the day he retired, I'm telling you, Trent, it's tragic. He got sick and he didn't last a year before he passed away. He
Yeah,
waited
it's
his
such a
whole life to
shame.
retire. Yeah. But he was something else, man. He was a good time. He came from the automotive world, and that was his last job until he could retire. But he taught me how to work on Jacobson reels, early on,
Mhm.
Greens
Yeah,
King
yeah.
fours and all those machines.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it is such a shame, and I mean, I've seen it, I don't think it matters the industry, whatever, but yeah, these guys, and I'm sure gals too, but we just hear about the guys, they
Yeah.
retire, they work their whole life and they're talking about all these things they're going to do in retirement. They retire and then a year or two they're gone.
Yeah. It's terrible.
And
Oh, yeah.
it is terrible. But it tells me, and I hadn't been this wise all the time, but it's something I put together recently.
Yeah.
I should have some fun now,
Right.
just in case.
Right.
I hope I live a long time, but if I don't, I want to have some fun now too.
Right. I wanna
And
enjoy my family, I wanna enjoy, yeah, fishing,
yeah,
and I wanna,
right, all those
yeah.
things. Yeah, for sure. Well, what would be your dream job or opportunity?
So, a million years ago, I thought I wanted to be a tractor tugboat captain. I wanted to push iron around a harbor. I
Okay.
love those boats. They're so cool, and you wanna talk about technology, those things are, joystick driven and got prompts going in every direction. I would love to be a tugboat captain, I think. When it comes to being in turf, I'd love to be the guy at any major league baseball park. I love baseball as well. And I think managing a major league baseball park would be awesome. And
Mhm.
then in golf, I think St. Andrews managed the managed the turf that old Tom Morris managed.
Yeah,
Well,
that'd be
yeah, I
something
want to
else,
sharpen
wouldn't it?
those reels.
Yeah, yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny. So, I've asked so many people this same question, what would be your dream job? And it's so funny, it's across the board because some people read that question and they think, well, what is my dream job in turf? And
Yeah.
then, like, when I had Bob Smith, he's in the witness protection. We give him a hard time, but being in witness protection, Bob Smith from PGA Frisco, he said he
Right.
wanted to own an NFL team.
Right.
That was his dream job. So, I mean, that's what's good about the question. You can take it any way you want to, and we get all these different answers. It's just
Right.
great. But yeah, tugboat captain,
Hell yeah,
I
man.
could get on board with that. That'd be awesome. It would be.
Yeah. I thought so. At least when I was young. If my mom didn't get ill, who knows where my life would have taken me. I might have gone back down to Charleston and started my tugboat career. I came
Hmm.
back over here and I got into golf.
Yeah, that's all right. We're glad to have you. What I love about Task Tracker is they're constantly innovating and listening to their users. They've added dozens of updates to make our job easier. One new feature is the ability to upload manuals to the equipment. All you have to do is scan the equipment QR code and you have the manual and all other information at the tip of your fingers. You can even create links to those manuals in the work orders and it goes directly to the page that you need. Make your life a lot easier and check them out at asbtasktracker.com. Let's get back to the episode. What technician would you like to work with for a day?
So there's a bunch of them. I would like to work with you. I don't want to name drop. Paul McCartney told me to never name drop, right? So
Okay.
I would like to work with you. I'd like to work with Mike Rollins and Austin Wright. I'd love to work with Jordan Raw, Brian Epplin. Um, I'd like to work with all those cats. There's a bunch of them. Chris Fogg, Kayla Kipp. Kayla's awesome.
Hmm.
Um, and then, Chad Braun. I just
Yeah.
want to see how all these people operate every day because they're really, really awesome. And then lately, when I went to Phoenix, I think the new person I want to work with would be J.R. Wilson and his son.
Yeah,
They
yeah, yeah.
they seem like they could baby step me through technology to where I would get it. You know, his class with Corey was awesome. I
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, I was bummed because I was doing something and couldn't get in there when JR and Corey were doing their thing.
yeah,
Bob would love to be able to attend that class. But yeah, I mean, JR, he's just one of those guys. And yeah, he's a New Yorker, but man, I love him to death.
Man, he's awesome.
He's
Yeah,
an awesome person.
right.
And if I called him up right now and said, JR, I need you here tomorrow, he would hop in the car and drive down here. And it didn't matter
Right.
what it was. Uh, if I said, I need you to hold my hand, he would just get in the car and come down here. I mean, that's just the type of guy he is,
Cool
you know?
dude.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
is very, very cool. And that's something else that come up in Phoenix. I met, and well, I'd met him before, but Jason Fontana, I met him last year in Orlando, and he's at a Desert Mountain. He's been on the podcast before, and it's just north of Phoenix, like 45 minutes north of Phoenix. And luckily, John Patterson had drove out there, JP, that everybody
Yeah.
knows him as JP. So I called John and I said, "You want to go up to Desert Mountain on Sunday before the show started?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, it'd be awesome. I was planning on hooking up with Jason anyway." So anyway, we go up to Jason. I'm making this story longer than it needs to be, but that's what I do and why I have a podcast, I guess. But we go up to see Jason and just, hanging around Jason for, a short period of time. I'm like, we are all rednecks. Like every mechanic I've met in the golf industry, we're just rednecks. And
Right.
even and I think of this because JR, he's on Long Island. He's in the Hamptons,
Yeah.
and everybody talks about the Hamptons and all the
Yeah.
money there. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of money there,
Oh,
but
yeah.
JR's a redneck.
Yeah.
It's just like no
Is
matter where you go, we're all rednecks.
isn't he like a firefighter too, or the captain of his local
Yeah, yeah,
volunteer
yeah.
fire department?
Well, and that's the other thing that I hadn't figured. I mean, it's great that they got volunteer fire. I'm not bashing on that at all,
Right.
but the amount of money on Long Island, and they have a volunteer fire department.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of. But they are very well funded, and I never asked Jr. I don't know exactly where their money comes from. If
Right.
if it's donations or if it comes from the state or the counties or whatever. But I mean, I forget what he told me. I think last year he ran like 150 calls. I mean, a lot of calls
Yeah.
because, I mean, it didn't, people say fire department, but if you don't know, that's, automobile accidents,
Oh, yeah.
that's, grandma
Yeah.
having medical
God bless him. I
issues.
couldn't do it. I couldn't see, those kinds of things.
Well, I've
Accident.
been a volunteer with our fire department here,
Well,
for
okay.
a long time, but I'm not a fireman. I
Right.
volunteered. We had a rope team, so it was a technical rescue team, and I volunteered for the search and rescue team, and that all fell under the fire department.
Ah,
And so I got a bunch of buddies that was in the fire department, and I mean, I've been doing that for almost 20 years now.
okay.
And, over the years, the guy's like, "Man, why don't you just come join the fire department?"
Mhm.
But the one thing that has kept me from doing that is I didn't think I could handle working a vehicle accident with a child
Right.
in
That's
the car.
exactly where I go to too. I'm like, God bless them because I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think I could handle it. I
Nope.
mean, running into a house on fire, I think I could handle that, but not
I
the
don't know if I'd want
car.
to, but
And
yeah, I probably could. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, no, there's just no way. So
Yeah. That's
anyway,
that's
okay.
that's tough. That's tough volunteering right there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, and JR and all the guy, I forget how many just at his station. There's like 50 volunteers.
Wow.
And I mean, yeah, big shout out to those people that are
Yeah.
volunteer, because they're not getting paid for that. And they're having to deal with all the stuff that the paid people are dealing with.
Oh,
Plus,
yeah.
they have to have a normal job.
And then
It's
they get
crazy.
woken up in the middle of the night to go. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, what do you know now you wish you'd known on day one?
I wish I'd have known how rewarding the job would end up being in the end versus, well, not the end, but later,
Mm-hmm.
uh, versus being jaded early on, jaded by the guys that I was working with, who were totally jaded. And even I got jaded and tried to leave the industry a couple of times and it just didn't work out. I found my way right back into the industry. Um, was an equipment operator working for a major construction company, industrial construction company when they were doing solar fields here in Virginia. And so I was, running a skid steer and doing things like that, and they laid me off at Christmas. And my wife was like, "Oh, well, this isn't gonna work." It's no, no, it's not. And I went back into golf because they never laid me off at Christmas. So yeah.
And I mean, that is another good thing about golf is, I mean, not that times can't be tough and, things happen. Yeah. But for the most part, it's a pretty stable job.
Right. Yeah. During the pandemic, I didn't miss a day.
Right. No, me
Golf
neither.
was huge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep. We still had to maintain a golf course.
that's right.
Well, how do you deal with that person on your crew? You got that person on your crew?
We all do, don't we?
Think so.
Yeah, and many different facets of that person over the years too. But I used to be a guy that would, call someone a moron or get mad at them or whatever.
Mhm.
I definitely, and even more so, even since I've found this group and listened to everybody else's way they deal with that person, I'd certainly try to find out what that person responds to positively. How am I going to get that person to respond positively, or even just, not be mad at each other, right?
Mhm.
Because we all know when we are just angry, nobody brings us what is broken. Then we get more angry because we find it put away or whatever. But yeah, I've certainly in the last few years tried to slow my roll and just relax a little bit. I don't want to be my guy George James that ends up, having a heart attack the day he retires.
Right, right, right. Yep. Not very good. I like it.
Yeah.
Get ready for tips and tricks. Let's do some tips and tricks.
All
What do you get?
right.
What do you got for us out of 28 years?
So, a lot of them have already been done. That's for sure. I don't know if has been mentioned, but I like to take a little piece of 1/2 inch round stock and weld that to a deep well 3/8 inch socket, and then to loosen the set screws or tighten the set screws on Procore 648 blocks, the little 3/8 square set screws on
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Injon block. That way it
Mhm.
gets my fingers and knuckles out of the way of the tines. I used to just destroy my hands on the tine,
Mhm.
especially if they were side eject or, trying to use a little 3/8 inch wrench to loosen those things. And so that is the way that I foiled that, I keep the skin on my fingers.
I love
Don't
it.
touch
That's
my knuckles
awesome. No, that's a
badly.
good one. It's a good
Yeah.
one. Yeah, we all like making our own tools.
Yeah. Right. And even though everybody's got QR codes and everything, and we all keep track of either our inventory or our maintenance through our computers and all, I still write on my oil filters, the date and the hours on the machine. Just so I know when I get in there and I just peel back whatever dirt's there, whatever, I know immediately how long it's been since it's been, you know, dealt with versus going to my computer and figuring that out.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
And yeah, I still do it too. And
Right.
as long as I'm doing this, I'm not
Yeah.
going to stop doing it just
Right.
because it is so easy to see.
Right.
And another thing I think about too, because people talk about synthetic oil and you can extend your oil changes and all that stuff. And that's great. But we, in my opinion and my experience, I don't touch the equipment as much as I feel like I need to anyway. So
Right.
if I extend my oil changes, that's less time I got eyes on that equipment. Because a
Right.
lot of times when I'm doing preventive maintenance, I'm looking all over that machine for hydraulic hoses, chafed or, I
Right.
mean, just all that stuff that can happen over time. I'm trying to catch one of those.
Right.
And if you catch one of those, how much is that worth? I mean, you can't put a price on it,
Right.
but if you save a hydraulic line from blowing out, that's worth a lot,
Right.
or
And especially from
whatever it
blowing
is.
out somewhere where we don't want it to. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll never forget, and it was a GK5. It was late '90s, and one of the rear hoses, it was 3-wheel drive. One of the rear hoses blew out on number 3 green. I mean, I still remember it like it was yesterday. and the operator was able to make a whole lap around the green before it run out of oil and stop
Oh,
moving,
God.
and I mean, it just destroyed the collar.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, just terrible. So, if you could prevent that from happening, what is that worth?
Right.
So,
My operator.
if you want to run synthetic oil, by all means run synthetic oil, but I still want to touch that machine.
Right. I agree with you.
Well, I didn't say all that for you to agree, but I appreciate you agreeing with me. And I really like the one liner about Paul McCartney. That was a good
Yeah,
one.
Paul
You learned,
McCartney told me to never name drop.
yeah, yeah. You learned that in class, didn't you? Was that 101 or
No,
201?
who said that? I don't know. Dave Grohl or somebody said it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was a good one. Well, let's talk about operator training. What's some of the things that you've done there at your place?
So as soon as I got there, I wanted that job. Anybody new that's coming in, anybody that's been working here, I'd like to retrain them or train them on all of this equipment. Because first and foremost, all of it can hurt you, and certainly it could kill you. Unfortunately, we had a death at a course that I worked at where
Mm,
guy was doing something that he probably shouldn't have been trying to do. First of all, he's trying to save the equipment from going, into the woods or whatever, and it killed it. And
wow.
if he'd have just let it go, it's okay. I try to let people know that none of this stuff is worth your life or breaking your arm or even a finger. Let it go. We'll get it out of the
Mhm,
water. We'll get it out of the trap. We'll do whatever. But yeah, proper training, man. I mean, how much money does that save you? How can you put a price on that as far as them operating the equipment the way it's supposed to be operated? You're going to have less breakdowns or less accidents or, any of that stuff. Operator, as my super likes to say, operator headspace and error.
mm,
But yeah, so I think it's key for not just, I'll give you an example. We've had a person at our course that's been mowing rough for 15 years, right?
mhm,
I'd like to jump out a window and cut my throat on the way down if I cut rough for 15 years. Trust me, I would. But this person loves it. Okay. The problem is she had a hydraulic leak on the rear of her 9009. It's the smallest hose on that machine, but it was blown apart. And she drove in, I don't know how far, more than a mile from where she was to the shop with that thing
mhm.
leaking the whole way. And I was that it didn't lock up somewhere on her, and I just, as a teachable moment of, you've been here 15 years. When you get a hydraulic leak, you need to get it to the cart path and let it sit. Call me.
Mhm.
I'll come out and determine what we should do up there.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Just something like that. I got a leak. I better go in. Not being properly trained, and that's on me, right? So she'd been there 15 and I've only been there 3, but I've if something happens where it was a trainable moment or something they should have known or safety wise or operational wise, that's on me now, right? I can't
Mhm.
blame anybody else but me. So, and that's the way I like it. I don't want everybody kind of guessing around at what happened or whose fault it is. If that isn't even important, whose fault it is, let's just fix the problem and move on. And hopefully it's a teachable moment, you know?
No, yeah, I agree with all that 100%. And the other thing I think I need to do a better job, and I'm sure there's a lot of others that could do a better job also, is coaching.
Yeah.
So when somebody's out on the course and they're operating a piece of equipment, don't pull up to them and start yelling at them that they're doing it
Right.
wrong, but just, try to coach them. Well,
Right.
maybe get a little bit closer here. Don't get so close to those tree roots. I mean, just whatever it is, but just giving them a little coaching.
Right.
And I think that goes a lot further than, why are you doing this? And I can't believe you're mowing that. And, I mean, all the things that I'm
Absolutely.
guilty of doing.
Right. Me
You
too.
know,
And,
I
but
mean,
I do like this, say we get a, um, a seasonal guy comes in, he's going to mow fairways all summer. Right. I mean, that's basically what he's going to do all summer long. I stay with that guy for 18 holes when I
oh,
train him.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. I let him know every little thing that's coming, whether it's drain inlets, whether it's, sprinkler heads, what to look for with it. I stay with them that entire day. And then the next day I release them. And then, usually I don't have too many problems with them if I stay with them. But yeah, yeah, no matter what it is, teas or whatever, because every tea's different, every green's different. Uh, where to turn, 3-point turns, where not to turn, where you're going to tear up the collar, or you're going to tear up the rough.
Mhm.
You might have to move all the way down to the front of the green to turn around, or the back of the green to turn around. But yeah, and they don't know that right away. You can teach them to drop the buckets and pick them up and to do a light bulb turn or whatever. But all the little idiosyncrasies and the minutia, that's hard to train. So you have to be there with them to point that out, I think. And that's what I like to do. Yeah.
That's really, really good because I mean, I've been doing this plenty long, and most of the time they say, basically, this is the way you start it. This is the gas, this is the brake, enjoy your ride.
Yeah,
And
ride it
that's
around in the shop yard for a minute so you get used to it. Yeah.
right. Yeah. And yeah, we definitely, a lot of us could do a lot better job on training. And I think that's awesome that you spend that much time with them. And I think that's, the other thing that I would think it would tell an employee is this must be really important if
Right.
they're going to stay with me the whole 4 hours I'm out here, however long it is to
Right.
mow fairways.
Yep.
Like, yeah, this must be pretty important.
Yeah. And like you said, it's coaching. So I'm there for that 4 hours. I'm not talking to them the whole time. I'm not over
Right.
coaching them. But whenever I see something that either comes up or they look at me and they know something was weird about their turn or their line or whatever it may be they're doing, whether they're running lines or whether they're checkerboarding or doing a tuxedo cut and I try to explain to them all of that. I try to explain to them why the grass is different colored. It's
Mhm.
rolled over and you're seeing the top half and the underside
Yeah, yeah.
I explain as much to them as I can so that they get it, so that they understand why they're doing what they're doing, not just doing what they're.
Mhm. No, I think that's really good. And yeah, I've tried, over the years, like operators washing equipment and
Oh,
show them, why that we need it washed, what we're trying to do in the shop, checking the cut and checking the height. And if it's packed full of grass, you can't stick a piece of paper in there and see if it cuts. It
nope.
doesn't work that way.
Yep.
So, help us help you
Right.
type thing. And I do think that goes further than just yelling at a person and saying, "Watch this better,"
Right.
next time.
Right.
So, and same thing, like if I put a fairway mower up on a lift and I see a bunch of, clippings up under there, I'll bring the operator over and say,
Oh,
next
yeah.
time when you're out there washing, I know you got to bend over a little bit, but try to spray up in here, and
Yeah.
try to relate to them and try to give them a little coaching. And I think it'll go a long way. We got anything else you wanna add on that?
No, I think that's about that. That's about it for that.
Well, let's do some rapid fire.
Oh, okay. Got about that.
Get ready.
Yeah.
What's your favorite movie?
Comedy is Caddyshack. Drama is Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, wow, yeah, both great, great movies.
Yeah.
Man, I could talk about Caddyshack all day for sure. Yeah,
I
it's a
usually do.
classic. Yeah. Well, yeah, how many times does Caddyshack come out through the week at the golf course?
Oh, a bunch.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
bunch of it.
A
Yeah,
bunch.
always. Yeah,
Yeah.
little one-liners from Caddyshack. I love it.
Right.
What would be your last meal?
So I think I would, if it was going to be the last meal I was going to eat, I would have to get brisket, dirty rice, and cornbread from ZZQ Texas Craft Barbecue in Richmond, Virginia.
Oh, okay. Well,
Very
dang.
specific. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And a cold Modelo. It's a $30 lunch, but I don't care. I pay it every time. Brisket's so crazy expensive, but it's
Mhm.
so good. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if I ever get back through Richmond, I'm,
I'm
definitely
telling you.
gonna check that out, and,
Yeah,
I'll give you a call. We'll run over there together. That'd be awesome.
absolutely.
What are you most proud of beside your family?
Oh, wow. You took the words right out of my mouth then.
Well,
Um,
and let's talk, I wanna hear what you're proud about other than your family,
Right.
but I don't want to leave family out of it. So
Right.
tell me about your family.
So, right. And thank you. And I think that's important too, because they live this life with us. Right.
Hmm.
Uh, my wife, Patricia, we've been married, 27 years.
Congratulations. Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, we have 2 kids, my son Max, who's 23, and my daughter Lily, who is 20. And Max is a baseball player. He's in the great state of Kentucky playing for, the University of the Cumberlands right now.
Okay.
And my daughter lives with us, but goes to school. She's a community college, a local community college, and she works at Cheddar's as a waitress. And,
Okay.
she
Awesome.
she's funny, man. That thing makes me laugh. My
Hmm.
daughter has the funny bone too.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
Very
yeah.
good.
And then, yeah, we got our dogs that we love, Bo and Belle, but yeah. And then what I'm most proud of other than those people, I'm most proud of the employee I've become over time, or the friend that I've become over time to people, or the mentorship I've given several people. I'm proud of that. Um, I coached baseball for a long time with my kid playing as a youngster,
Mhm.
and a lot of that was very rewarding to me, and I was proud of that.
No, that's awesome. That's so good. And I want to tell you that, well, I want to apologize first off for waiting this long to have you on the podcast because we've known each other, at least known of each other for quite some time. And I will never forget being in Myrtle Beach. I don't remember what year it was, but I remember where we were. And
Yeah,
you come up and introduced yourself.
yeah,
And you told me how much the podcast meant to you.
it does.
And that has stuck with me so long. And just, that one experience meeting you, you telling me that made me say everything, every hour I've spent, every dollar I've spent was worth doing this because it helped Brian Harper.
Well,
I'm
well, that's awesome.
serious.
Now, well,
That's
and
just the
and
way
that
it made
hits
me
me, and it
feel.
hits me right in the old ticker too. Thank you, and I appreciate that. And I'm telling you, when I found the podcast, I was like, "Oh man, my people, they understand what I'm going through,"
Mm.
and it's been fun. I mean, the podcast is great. And this whole community that you've created is just killer. I mean, on every level. I don't know what was I going to say about Eplin. Oh, Epling kept saying, "You've been on the podcast," and I was like, "No, man." I said, "That's not really up to me." He go, "Just ask him." That's what I did. And
Yeah.
you have put that out there for sure. It wasn't like, I was unaware, but I was just like, I don't want to feel like I didn't want to, I didn't want to, I don't know. I felt like I'd be like, "Hey, I want to be on your thing." But anyway,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
very glad that we talked in Phoenix, and I'm so glad that you hold me in that regard, and that's awesome. Now that's what I'm most proud of.
That's awesome, man. No, that's good. Good
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah,
yeah.
and while we're talking about that, anybody right now, listen to the podcast. If you want to do this, just reach out to me. And it's as easy as that. I'll send you the list of questions. If you got any questions, you can ask me. I mean, I try to make it as painless as possible. And
It is very easy, even though I screwed it
yeah,
up last night. It's very easy.
well, no, that was, technical difficulties. Those are going to happen. That ain't nobody's fault.
Right.
Um, but yeah, if you're interested, and if you're like Brian and you're sitting there like, I don't want to reach out, just do it, man. Get out of your comfort zone. I say it all the time in the classes and talks I do. Get out of your comfort zone.
Yes,
It,
that's also why I did the stand-up comedy. That is not a comfortable scenario to stand up and go, "Hey, what I'm gonna tell you right now, I think is hysterical. I sure hope you do." I mean, that's scary,
oh yeah, yeah.
And
No,
and
that's
and
serious out of the
but I
comfort zone.
loved it. I mean, I'm loving it. I'm trying to do at least 1 or 2 open mics every month.
That's
So,
awesome. That's so cool. Yeah, and I mean, I know it's probably harder than it is to do it than to say it, but living outside your comfort zone, I mean, if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today.
right.
And just like you coming up and speaking to me in Myrtle Beach that year, if you hadn't have done that, I ain't saying I would have quit, but I mean, that really impacted me. to say this is worth doing.
Well,
And,
that's awesome.
well, and honestly, it's, I don't want to take all the credit away, but that's happened several times with
Right.
other people.
Right.
And, like
Absolutely.
when we did the mental health episodes,
Yes.
and a guy in the WhatsApp group said he was going to go get mental health, or I mean, go seek
Yeah.
help, professional help. And
Right.
I'm like, man, everything we did is worth it. It's
Yeah.
worth every bit of it if this one person goes and gets help.
Yeah.
So yeah,
At
it's
the
just
Phoenix show,
crazy.
the Pete Grass and T Dunning and the other lady, I can't remember her name. I apologize for that, but they gave a mental health seminar. I was sitting with Kayla, and Kayla told me, "Oh, these people are great. You're going to love this." And at the end, I did love it. It was awesome, and I think all of us could use, a little help in that area all the time. It's there's nothing bad about talking to somebody and getting things off your chest and letting them maybe give you another point of view or another angle of attack on how you might want to deal with something. It's a good thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, I don't want to turn this into a mental health here, and I'm
Right.
ready. It's going on to about an hour, and it's probably time to wrap it up. But
Okay.
I have to say this. So I started seeing a therapist over a year ago, and it took me a while. I don't remember if it was the third or fourth therapist that I went to before I
Right.
found somebody that I kind of jived with.
Right. That's important.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and nothing against this one lady I saw, but I see her one time, and I don't know, she's probably late 20s ish or something like that. So, immediately I'm like, okay, I don't know about this. And so anyway, she said, it says here that you have a podcast. That's not right, is it? And I'm like, yeah, that's right. So I kind of knew then, like, okay, she doesn't get me at all.
Right. Uh,
Um, so anyway, if you are trying to, do some therapy, it might take you a minute to find one that you connect with. And
right.
then the other thing I want to warn you uh, is your therapist will make you feel not very smart quite often. So I was talking to my therapist one day because I do have a problem with negative talk, personal negative talk. Like,
Uh-huh.
you idiot, you dummy, why are you doing this? You know better than that. You should be smarter. I mean, all the things I heard from my dad
I do
probably
the same
growing
thing.
up
Yeah.
um, is where I'm thinking of
Right.
that about. But anyway, she said, or I was telling her I wanted to work on not doing as much negative talk. And she says, have you ever thought of positive talk? And I'm like, Dad, what? What? What is going on here? There's such thing as positive talk? No
Right.
way. You're making this up. So anyway, I mean, it's just, yeah, so good. And it's helped
That's
me
awesome.
so much because I mean, honestly, I'm 45 years old. I'll be 46 this year. And I didn't really know what made me happy until, 6 months ago or 8 months ago or whenever it
Right.
was within the last year,
Well,
and
now
I
you
mean,
know.
right. And now I know what, and the people around me notice it. My family notices it, my daughters and all that,
Right.
that I'm not the same old asshole I used to be,
Oh, good.
and
Well,
I
good
mean,
for you.
it's been great. And I'm saying all that to bring home, get out of your comfort zone.
Right. Right. And
And
that's what.
especially for men like us, it's really hard to, you know, pour your feelings out there,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's tough.
Yeah.
And,
So,
the way we're, our culture or whatever, it's, all those things. But anyway, tell the listeners how they could get a hold of you.
so on Twitter or X, formerly known as Twitter, I don't know how to say it,
Yeah.
BH Jenkins at BH Jenkins. Um, that's my nickname, Bullethead Jenkins. And so
Okay.
my nickname has a last name and it's Jenkins. Yeah. And then I have an email if you want to reach out to me comedy wise, bhjcomedy@gmail.com.
Okay. Awesome. That's so good. Well, thank you so much, Brian, for being on. And I'm sorry if I rambled too much there at the end,
I
but,
enjoyed the conversation.
you
Yeah.
know, I am really passionate about all those things. And I am very thankful for you and what you did, early on when, this was first started. And I apologize again for not having you on sooner.
You don't have to apologize. It's all good. Thank you for those kind words. And likewise, because the podcast gave me another breath of fresh air, my man.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the Real Turf Techs podcast. I hope you learned something today. Don't forget to subscribe. If you have any topics you would like to discuss or you'd like to be a guest, find us on Twitter at Real Turf Techs. See you, bye.